Hello, and welcome back to another video. If you just picked up UFC 6 and you keep getting your cheeks clapped, then you're in the right place. I've put an unreasonable number of hours into the UFC game series altogether, like a regrettable amount of hours. And there's 5 things that every new player absolutely needs to know to get better. So let's get right into it. Alright, tip number 1 is stamina is everything. Look man, we've all done it. You boot up your first match and you just start throwing haymakers like you're trying to end this thing in the first 10 seconds. And I get it. I get the appeal. But UFC 6 does not care about the highlight reel you're chasing. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and the game will punish you for forgetting that. You're not supposed to knock somebody out in the first round. Like, that's just not the assignment. If you play like it is, you're gonna gas yourself out embarrassingly fast, and once that stamina bar hits empty, your fighter is basically moving through wet cement. You hit softer, you move slower, you can't even sprawl properly on a takedown. You just become a human punching bag standing there in the middle of the octagon, and it's just not a good look, man. So genuinely, pace yourself. Throw with a plan, not just because you're bored and want to knock this person out. Let your stamina come back when you need it to, and pick your shots to actually turn it on. The player who's smart with their gas tank across all 5 rounds is gonna beat the guy who blew his whole load in the first round. Pause. But you get the point. Tip number 2 is get comfortable with movement. A lot of new players act like they're fighting in a straight hallway. They're just moving forward and backward. That's gonna get you knocked out so fast. Backing straight up is honestly one of the worst habits you can pick up in this game, because all you're doing is walking your own back toward the cage, and once you're cornered there, your opponent's just gonna tee off on you while you have nowhere to go. Believe me, it is a terrible feeling being in that position. What you actually want to do is circle. Use your left stick to move around your opponent instead of retreating in a straight line. Circling keeps you off the fence, it gives you angles your opponent has to deal with, and it basically lets you decide where the fight happens instead of just reacting to whatever your opponent's doing. And here's the part that actually matters the most. Control the center of the cage. Think of the middle of the octagon as your spot. It's your home. You pay rent here. Do not leave your home. If you're constantly pushing forward and circling back to the center instead of getting pushed to the cage, you're the one running the show. Good footwork alone will win you fights against people who don't get this, because half your opponents are going to corner themselves without even realizing it. You don't even have to do anything, just wait. Tip number 3 is learn your ground game. I'm going to be real with you. Nobody wants to hear this, including the past me. But if you actually want to be good at UFC 6, you can't just be a stand-up fighter. You have to understand the ground game. Positions, what's actually good for you versus what's bad for you, how the submission system actually works, all of it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. The ground game in this thing is a way more complex than the stand-up game. There's more going on, more decisions, more stuff that can go wrong if you don't know what you're doing. But the reality of the situation is like 80% of people who play this game never bother learning it. They see grappling and they just check out mentally. Most of the time, they're just gonna quit. They hate it because it's kind of a lot to learn, so they avoid it completely. I mean, shit, I'm still learning, and I've been playing this series forever. But that means if you actually put in the time, like learn your transitions, top control, feints, going for subs, and defending them, you are instantly better than most of the people you're gonna run into online, just from trying. That's such a low bar to clear, and most people won't even attempt it. And a lot of fights end up on the ground at some point anyway, so you're basically guaranteeing yourself an advantage in half of your matches just by not being scared of the ground game. Don't skip this part, I promise you it is worth it. Tip number 4 is throw pre-planned combinations. Look, new players love throwing bombs. One overhand right or one head kick and hope for the best. And look, we've all done it, but people who are actually good at this game aren't doing that. They're thinking in combos before the first punch even leaves their hand. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So instead of throwing one big overhand, try something like a jab, straight, and then a lead overhand. Stringing strikes together like that does two things for you. Number one, it actually boosts your chances of knocking out your opponent because a real combo does more cumulative damage and is way harder to see coming than one telegraphed haymaker. Number two, it lets you start mixing up where you're hitting. A couple shots to the head, then one to the body, flip it around, whatever it may be. And honestly, the more comfortable you get switching up your combos and where you're aiming, the harder you are to read, which matters so much more than people think, because in a fighting game, being predictable is basically a death sentence. If your opponent knows exactly what's coming, they're going to counter it every single time with no exceptions. But if you're constantly changing it up, you're the one calling the shots in every exchange. Be unpredictable, then your knockouts will start to come to fruition. Last but not least, tip number 5, play to your fighter's strengths. This one gets overlooked way more than it should. You need to know your fighter. MMA is this huge sport with a million different disciplines mashed together, and this game reflects that pretty accurately. Every fighter has their own strengths and weaknesses across striking and grappling, and it genuinely changes how you should be playing. Some fighters are nasty on the ground, but even that breaks down further. Some are ground and pound guys who just want top position to smash you, and others are pure submission artists looking to lock in a choke or an armbar. It's the same deal with standing up. Some fighters are kickboxers with strong knees and kicks, and others are straight up boxers who just want to keep it standing and pick you apart with their hands. The takeaway here is simple. Don't fight against who your fighter actually is. If you're playing a wrestler with heavy ground and pound, don't try to throw hands with a boxer. That's just not your fight. Take them down and do what you're built for. If you're playing a subspecialist, hunt for scrambles and transitions instead of just sitting in top position doing nothing. Playing to your fighter's actual strengths instead of fighting however you want is going to change your win rate more than almost anything on this list. And that's the list. Manage your stamina, get your movement down, don't be scared of the ground game, throw real combos, and actually play to your fighter's strengths instead of against them. If this helped even a little bit, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let me know down in the comments which tip you think matters the most for new players. Alright, thanks for watching you guys. I'll catch you next time. Take care.